Some theory side to it as well. So first I just want to understand, what do you think, why do we budget? Just one question, rest all I'll be speaking only. But why do we budget?
Better prepare.
Yeah.
Make sure that you at least forecast what your efforts are worth.
Yeah. So budgeting is all about numbers, but the purpose of the budget is in my view, is personally, it is not about numbers. Basically, as Srini mentioned, you should have a 5-year view. Your 1-year budget is one step of that. So first and foremost thing, your budget has to be in thought process to what you are thinking 5 years. If you're thinking 5 years is something and budget is in some different direction, then something is not aligned. So you have your long-term view. I mean, these are theoretical side of it, but then these are all imported from promoters to think, because the person who's making numbers will not be bothered about it. So there is always a different perspective when it comes to the promoters about the budget. There is a different. Finance guys are just custodian of information. We just collect information from certain side, apply our some number crunching and do it. But the least promoter should have a longer vision, and budget should be aligned to that. That is very important. In 5 years, if you want to become a X company, then all the incremental step you do in budget should be that. So as I said, it is the second biggest benefit or purpose for the promoters to do, according to me, is that it sets a common goal for everybody in the company. It's not the number, it's people come together and they work for common goal. Many companies feel this department is working there, this department is working somewhere, this is thinking something, and then that fragmented approach doesn't help company, right? When people work toward common goal, help the company. Promoter words can be one common goal, but the budget is a much bigger aspect which set all people to common goal. So that also means budget has to be negotiated. I'll go to step also, but these are the things which I think are important for before we begin the budget process. So it is your statement of intent. That means it has to have a long-term vision embedded into it, otherwise you will get into another direction. Second, people should buy this. So if you have some intent and others are not aligned to it, you alone cannot run and chase it. So that means people should be involved into this. That means everybody comes to a common goal. And budget can actually get people to work towards a common goal. This where you talk to company where budget is successful. Budget is actually the element that get the people together and work towards one common thing. Now that is more about the purpose of the budget. Of course, we budget, revenue, target, approach. We'll come to approach that part later. When to budget is very simple. You budget process generally starts in the 15th of Feb, and by March 15 you should close. Why should you need 20 days, 2 months? Because if you are doing detailing budget, otherwise I can do a budget in 1 day also. I just have to take old year P&L, put some plus minus. That's easy way to budget, but that's not where you're figuring out all your area of improvements. One second.
No, there is one other thing I will also say. When should you start your budget?
Yes.
Is with respect to find out what is the process that has the longest lead time for you to start.
Yes.
It should be finishing by that time. That should, whichever is the process, even if it is the smallest of the process, is the lead time to start that process. Like for example, you are giving you are budgeting for marketing, and you don't have a marketing manager, and you have a marketing budget starting for 1st of April, you don't have a person. It is not going to work. Just an example I gave, right? If it's going to take 3 months time for you to have a marketing manager, then don't budget anything starting on 1st April, you start from 1st of July. At least you will know that you have a guy there, he would have at least done some induction, he can start spending some money from there. Same way, it can work on the income side also. Look at your lead time activities, what you have and what you don't have, what can immediately, because nobody is going to become a completely new guy on 1st of April. Nothing is going to happen. 1st of April is another day. Same day, मैं कल जैसे सोया उठा वैसा ही आया ऑफिस को. But ये बजट में नया है, नहीं होने वाला. So I think it has to be prepared. Lead times have to be thought about. And then the messaging has to happen, saying that yes, these are some of the new things that we are going to do. So prepare yourself well. There has to be a communication, there has to be a documentation, and there has to be an alignment. Yes. Budgets are either made top down or bottoms up. Both approaches I have seen, and something has to be done top down. Everything cannot be done bottoms up. something has to be done bottoms up. It cannot be done top down. So balance has to be struck properly. It differs from company to company, industry to industry. We'll have to keep that in mind.
Sure. So basically, as Srini mentioned, there are two attributes to budgeting before we go to step. First is that how do we make budget? Is it a forced budget? Means is it a top to bottom budget that you just make the budget and tell everybody to approach? Second is a participative budget where everybody in the company is participating to make the budget, which is both are nowadays it's not working. But over participative budgets will also have their own influences. Not everybody will be working in the best interest of the company. Plus it can be so there are kind of negotiated budgeting that happens where you also impose something and there are things that comes as a so this we have to think first. It looks like a theory, but this is the approach you have to decide first which route I will take. Then you are into one direction. Right, because otherwise it can be mix of many things and it may not get proper conclusion if the process or the approach if we are not clear at the beginning. Very quickly, what are the type of budgets processes generally can happen? Srini mentioned one is called incremental budget. That is, you take your last year numbers, you just increase something, which is the easiest form of budgeting, can be done in a boardroom in couple of hours. Then there is something called value proposition based budgeting, which is normally not used by companies. There you see the value in everything you do. I won't get into much into theory, but this government generally used to see which scheme to now promote because they have limited money and they have many options to do. Third, then which is zero based budgeting. It is extremely time consuming process, but then it has each and everything. And the detailing about budget is that, for example, if there is one way to do revenue budgeting is that I 800 crores, there were 6 geographies, I did 100 crore and 150 crores and I want 10% increment here, 10% increment there. That is one way to do it. The another way to do it that you do have geographies, then you divide into quantities, you divide into prices, you divide into product groups. Right? And then if you break further, you can realize actually you can either aim 10% target overall or you can aim 15% target in one product group, 5% target in two product group. If you go to that level, means you know what role to give to people. If you don't go to that level of budgeting, then you don't know which business head has to be pushed more, who is your key player this time. So that is what all detailing is required in the budget. So that is why I was recommending, of course the time is different, but 2 months is generally on an average we see a good budget, detailed budget, I won't say good budget, but detailed.
I will just add one more point there. One of the important component of budget, budget has to be seen in 3 components. One is having an Excel document which is a budget. Second one is this is बोलते हैं गणित. थोड़ा अंग्रेजी भी होना चाहिए because what is it that we are going to do? What is the action plan to get this budget? If there are certain new initiatives, this is what I will do. I will go there. I will open a new offices or I will get some new customers. How will I get it? So action plan होना चाहिए. And the third and very important thing is that what is it? How am I going to The joke is, why do we call salary compensation? Because it is believed that there is some damages inbuilt in it. Okay, that's the jokes apart. Compensation has to be thought through. How do we actually compensate people for their efforts? And how is it dovetailing into the budget efforts? So these 3 things, when you are having a plan, it's not just Excel, it has to have an English, and it has to be tying up with some of your key guys who are having impact into the budget. If it is very highly dependent upon your sales team to produce sales, or if it is dependent upon your factory guys to produce it, what is their incentive to produce? Have you agreed with them, the KPI? So that also has to be simultaneously prepared. You can't just prepare a budget and then work out salary separately and work out the action plan separately. All the 3 things have to together flow. Then only a budget has a chance of at least getting 90% achieved. So people forget it.
Nobody
the
gets
components of the budget.
Nobody gets the budget right. It's just the direction that you get.
It's not intended to get right, but at least get the components right. It's not just an Excel.
So how do you monitor it on month-on-month?
Yeah. So before quickly going to that.
Before we go to execution,
Yes.
you mentioned one point of top down and bottom up.
Yes.
So suppose if you've done 100 crores this year,
Yes.
do I give the teams a blanket saying a budget karo and then let's see what number comes, or does the management first put an aspirational number saying okay इस साल तो 150 crore करना है?
Sure. No. So basically.
Can I just improvise on
Yes.
this thing that will answer my question also?
Yes.
When you said top down and bottom up, right?
Yes.
usually, let's be honest about it, when you take bottom up, you want to take bottom up on revenues. तो कितना करेगा? तेरा vertical कितना करेगा? तेरा vertical कितना करेगा? That's very common. Internally, you know these numbers are way ahead from what even you're looking at sometimes because they're very ambitious. Sales guys, they say that अच्छा ये हो रहा है, सब कुछ हो रहा है.
Or very conservative.
Very concept. Sometimes very concept, sometimes very. So you make a plan, which is what you think is realist based on the inputs. But then you have a plan to say that ये stretch भी तो कर सकता है. तो एक stretch target होता है. अब stretch जब होता है ना तो उसमें expenses also will change accordingly.
Yes.
So here,
So what does it mean? It means that there are two budgets now.
yeah,
One
there
clear,
are
one
always
stretch.
two. There are budget should always be flexible. We can static budgets in these days doesn't work because the customer
So
needs.
what's the starting point?
Yeah, starting point. I'm coming to that. So first, what I personally observe is that we are thinking that budget is your ownership or your ownership only. That's not true way of budgeting. Budgeting is actually ownership of 5-6 people that you identify. You're just managing it. So first thing is that everybody will, if the somebody is not participating into the budget, so I mean, don't take me wrong, but the approach says that he will say something. No, they are as good as budget owner. If they are not identified 4 people, sales guy is not part in making the budget process, then whole year he will do things to make you happy. So first and foremost, you neither push, you not take. So budget is basically, it is about 4 or 5 department heads. They run the budget, they run the show, you run them. Technically, so everything from budget goes from you, then it is a mandate. The mandate can be changed, can be made anytime.
I think it's a process of negotiation as well, right?
And reiterative. In fact, even what budget experience we have, if budget has not been discussed 5 times before closure, I'll say it is not a good budget.
So
On an average.
Negotiation, will it be a part of the starting point, or when they have finished their budget and the owners are given their aspiration, that's when you meet and
No,
you
so
can-
for example, you gave an example of sales. So let's say you have a particular business, what is your business?
Diamonds.
Diamonds. I don't have much of knowledge there, but let's say if you have a particular set of business, let's say Tushar has a business of cranes and Tushar might say I want 50% increment. Then you just don't go and say, okay, my target this year is that we can achieve. So what you go and say is that let's say I have 200 crore now, I want to do 300 crore next year. What can we do? Can we achieve from our existing products? What do you think? Would we have to get into new products or not? Or do we have to get into new markets or not? What do you think if you have to achieve 3 crore, how would you come back? What are the additional marketing spending we will require? These are the questions to be
So
asked.
he'll set the ball rolling saying, मुझे 200 से 300 करना है.
Some aspiration has to go from top to down.
Because
Yeah.
if you leave it to
No,
the
you can
team,
be open-ended.
they will
You
go
say
to
like what?
110.
Yeah, it can be open-ended. Okay, what do you think? How much we will raise? But that area I believe is more promoters' rule to the extent. There are no
I think the ball starts rolling top down.
Top down.
ball start rolling top down, but no, they can always come and say, let's say your target is from 200 to 250, and they say there is a parallel service which which is a natural expansion to us. I can get it another 100 crore business if you do this capex. Then we should hear them out as well.
See, this is where what I have experienced is the visioning exercise.
Yes.
The 5-year, 10-year kind of plan really helps, where you have alignment with the team. They know where to go. And
Yes.
then it's a matter of academic interest as to, okay, year 1, year 2, year 3, 100
Yeah.
so करना है या 100 का 150
And what key initiatives will take this year?
300 करेंगे, हाँ.
So budget is very much your one. So if you have a 5-year vision, it is a 20% of your vision. And for example, in 5 years, if your target is 500 crore, definitely your existing products is not most likely not going to do because your all competition is not full to give you all their business to you, right? So there you will either enter into new products or you will do forward integration, backward integration. There are many things. Idea can come from you, idea can come from them also. So I'm saying it is a discuss. Top down, bottom down is a approach. I'm saying, and even when I was saying type of budgeting is they are not defined type. It's just the thought process. You always discuss it. So let's say go to stepping. What are the steps of the budget? So basically, ideally, wherever we have seen a detailing budget exercise, basically what you do first thing is you have initial budget meetings. You don't get any numbers on the first day meeting. There's no rule. This is how generally you identify your key people who will be running the budget, who will be making the budget. Finance guys, I'm again saying you, finance guy cannot make budget. We only understand is to add numbers. We don't understand business. I mean, some understand business, some only can add number and they can do mistakes there also, right? So finance guys making budget is a first alarm. Something is wrong. That means you're doing incremental budget, you're not thinking a lot. So there has to be detailing. First is you do initial meetings, you set around the targets. Can we do 150 crore? What can be done to do 200 crores? Do you have any ideas? Just initial budgeting meeting. Then as a preferred step, what I suggest is that you identify your guys. It's not that 100 people are making budget. It is their job to talk to 2-3 more guys that is into their department. It is their job. But you identify key stakeholders whose main revenues are, these are like sales guys, production guys, procurement guys. Procurement has generally lesser role in whatever, but it can vary from company to company. In business, the procurement planning can be very big thing. For example, we have a client called Avi Global. Again, as in procurement planning makes a lot of difference because you buy plastic granules for longer period of time. But generally, these guys you involve, then you have a execution team can be on customer service also, because some businesses customer service. So you identify your team. That is first thing. Then basically you have a vision, but you don't also give them open-ended that get anything you want. You always first empower them with your previous year data. So when you have identified people that you have to make sales budget with, let's say approximately 200, can we do 150? Then procurements, and first you give them historical numbers. Let them also become. I always say that MIS is not for promoters. MIS is only for the managers. Promoters just see and question them for that. But they should ideally get MIS before you, right? Like this, if they have to budget, you also empower them with the last year data. This is how last year happened. This is what gone wrong. This has gone right. You give them, don't give them topper, to give them certain trends to study. So that while preparing budget, they already know the trends. They already know what is, for example, manufacturing setup. We can take any example. So we say that, okay, I want this cost. But the cost is not only about raw material, right? Cost is about raw material. Cost is about the number of hours machine is running. Then cost is about how much time your power was up. Cost is about how much lesser labor you utilize. Cost is also about what was the wastage lesser, was a saleable production. I'm just giving random examples. So empower them to the extent numbers are available to those guys, and then tell them, okay, first to do is revenue budgeting. First to do is revenue budgeting, because unless nobody can budget if you don't know the target well. If marketing guys has to budget, they have to know the target. So step 1, you do revenue budgeting. There you can go into as detailing as you want, quantity, variance, those are all fine. Sorry. Then as a next step, they come back to you. With their budget, department budgets. Okay, this is my department budget in line with what vision we discussed. Then you question the cost. I'll go to some 2-3 points. How do you question the budget? Basically, okay, first let me finish the step. You have initial meetings, then you give them certain old data, you give them templates. You just don't tell them what to come back. Finance team or the budgeting team will make a right template. How do you want to see? You give them the templates, you give them the past year data, you also give them competition data. For example, it is my clear competition. This is the competition who is hurting me the most. If he is having 10% labor cost, why do we have 15% labor cost? Let them think. It's not necessary it's going to come up with 10%, but you empower with lot of data to the heads. They come back, you negotiate, then you consolidate into it, and then you see whether it is fixing your bigger picture or not. Not necessary the all department data will get into it. 2-3 points to take care, which I have personally seen. Department generally over budget. So that at the year end they can come and tell you I saved. So that is I've seen trends. I've seen some people intentionally over budget so that at the year end they can take a brownie point that they saved money. If you have,
deficit budgeting is not a good budgeting the way we do for India.
Sorry?
They should in fact come and say there's a deficit budgeting, right? Rather than saying that I have saved money and not consumed, it should be taken otherwise.
That's the approach of the promoter, right? If promoter is looking for saving, then they will come and savings only. It's what you want to see. Like people vote what government do what people want to see.
Approved a budget and if it has not been consumed, that means there is something structurally wrong because
I'll come to variances, how to handle variances. It is not consumed is fine, but sometimes there are favorable variances also. There are unfavorable variances also. But I was just talking about the process. Then you consolidate and you basically end to it. So ideally promoter role in budget should be running the key people. Because they got the budget, you can question them. If you have given the budget, they will have excuses throughout the year because they did not give you that budget. Plus they will not feel involved. We are not having any motivation classes, but if I have given budget, I am more likely to get it done. So this is how generally budget process works. it can be hell lot of detail. We are not going into the nitty-gritties. Even sale budget can have 25 different Excel sheets. That's a different thing. You can go salesperson wise, you can go geography wise, quantity, rates, rate variances. You can always have a good scenario, bad scenario, optimistic scenario. Ideally, one is practical and one is optimistic scenario. But this is okay. Now coming to post budget. So let's say we have closed the budget, but generally these are the steps involved. Post budget, one thing is that throughout the year, generally, if something goes wrong, promoters just give up the budget. That means the whole year is gone because we have given up, something was wrong. So that is why I think there should be flexible budget. If certain assumptions were wrong, just don't give up the budget. Then you lose whole the process. So one thing is we budget because we want to achieve everything. But actually why do we do budget is so that we can have monthly review of performance. The purpose of budget is to set a certain thought process, but then monthly review it so that you're tracking timely. Monthly can be quarterly also, that is an individual choice, but you are actually tracking whether you are on the path or not. That is why we do variance analysis. So variance has to be there. Nobody gets the budget right, as I said. Only if you can see the future, then you can get the budget right. Never in my life I have seen budget right. Then, but what happens generally if you have predicted 18% EBITDA, as far as you are getting 18% EBITDA, let's say, and you are not getting into nitty-gritties, that is another mistake that generally people do, because it can be at a positive, favorable variance at one and unfavorable variance one. Are you happy with what you have the final score? Then it is fine. Otherwise, there are always a lot of options to improve.